Hi everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am moving on with layout number 4 in my Project Tray series using the Willemstad kit from Clique Kits or Clique International. The kit that I'm using is going to be linked below. It is a limited edition kit, so once it sells out, it is gone. So make sure that you grab the kit today. That way you can join me in all of the process and the layouts. This kit does feature embellishments from Vicki Boutin's Sweet Rush and Paige Evans' Splendid collection. Today I am focusing on this Paige Evans Splendid collection. And I'm using some of the really pretty bright pink and plaid papers and a lot of florals in this collection to document photos of myself. I started with 5. I eventually will end up with 4. But I'm documenting photos of myself over the past summer, and I've had a lot of personal growth over the last year, and it's just a moment that I wanted to remember about finally being comfortable in my own skin. So what I've done is taking the 3 papers that you see there, I've just torn them off, and I embraced the messy edges, and I even used my distress tool to make them even more messier on the edge. And I am going to use this on the left-hand side of my page as a base for my 4 small photos that I will use. The one on the top there I end up removing. I do a lot of fussing back and forth trying to pull this one together. It was one of those layouts where I had in my head that I knew that I wanted to do, but I could not get it from my head to paper, and I realized that it was that 5th photo for me that was throwing everything off. The word lovely on this page is one of those large words from Paige's paper in this collection that I fussy cut out, and I loved it, and I wanted to use it vertical along with these papers and have my photos mirror it. So what you saw there just a second ago was how this is going to try and eventually come together. But first I am going to do some more mixed media behind it. This is just a little bit more mixed media on this page. I don't use it quite as much as what I did in the last one. I recently just uploaded a fishing layout. This one I don't think has as much mixed media to it, but I am using the same colors that I did on that previous layout, and I'm using this same gesso, and I love this gesso so much. It is white. It does dry butter smooth. It makes it very easy to write on, and I highly recommend it. I do end up adding it to the top of that floral paper there because I am going to carry the color from my white base paper over a little bit. You can see whenever I sprayed that blue there, it kind of sprayed already on its own to the left, but I will go in and actually add some color over to it. I think that kind of helps tie the mixed media background and the pattern papers together. It just helps bring everything all together in the end. And you will see 2 whoopses whenever I go to do this. And I left them in just so that you can see the paint moving right now, the spray that's moving. Gesso allows that to do that. If you don't have gesso on your paper, that's not going to do it. It's going to spray. The paper's going to absorb it. It's going to stick. The 2 oopses, I will point them out here in a minute. The one is in that teal green section right where I just sprayed over because I tried covering it up, but it didn't work. I will take my brush to that, and that spot, my gesso was not dry whenever I applied my ink, so it made my inks duller, and it mixed the white in with my ink, so it kind of goofed up there, but in the end it looks perfectly fine. The other oops is going to come in this pink area that I just did, but towards the right. I didn't have a lot of gesso on the paper, and you'll see the spot where I had no gesso at all. It's actually starting to absorb right now and get really dark. I had no gesso on that piece at all, and you can see how the water just gets absorbed right into the paper, and it will dry. It lightens up a lot when it dries, but it doesn't go away. Fortunately, even though these were both accidents, they do end up getting covered up in the end by pictures and embellishments and stuff, so you really don't see them. But I wanted to point it out because, one, it is very important to use gesso and to let it dry, where my impatience wouldn't let it dry. And that it is also to make sure that you get gesso on all parts of your paper so that the water doesn't get absorbed and create water blobs or inky blobs like it did there. But a quick recap, colors, I am using all shimmers sprays. The pink is Colorings Pink Stiletto. The green is Colorings Don't Citra on Me. The teal is Colorings Well Blew Me Down, which is my absolute favorite teal. I highly recommend that teal. It seems my go-to teal almost nearly every time I reach for that type of color. That's what it is. See there, I'm pointing out the blobs in the two places. Okay, anyways, back to the colorings. Yellow, I used Colorings Little Yellow School Bus. So those were the 4 colors that I pulled in on this layout. I let it sit and dry so that I didn't make any more boo-boos. And then I ended up stitching my 3 layers of paper down, and I'm going through now and lifting the edge of those to add more dimension and shadow and texture to the page. One of my favorite things to do is stitch my papers down to my mixed media layouts. I think that it helps flatten the layout out, flatten the layout down. Whenever you use mixed media, your paper warps and bends because that's paper's natural reaction to water. So that, I believe, in my opinion, it helps flatten everything down, and I just love the way that it looks. So this is where I decide that, I'm going to use only 4 of my 5 photos. They are 4 photos that I took of myself and selfies here this summer when we went on a vacation in July with my boys and my mom. And this whole layout and the journaling that I will add later on revolves around myself and a journey that I have been on, a personal journey that I have been on now for about 10 months. And that it was a huge weight loss journey for myself. And this was the first time and that I can remember that I have ever been comfortable in my skin. Meaning I was able to put on a swimsuit, and I was able to walk, and I was able to wear tank tops, and I was able to wear shorts, and I felt comfortable in myself. And that's what I'm documenting on this. And I use the word lovely as a title to reference how I felt about myself, and I will journal about that a little bit later. I do use the larger florals from Paige's collection and her floral ephemera pack to create a cluster there on the left-hand side. And then again, a smaller cluster over on the right-hand side by the O and the V. I do have 2 chipboards that I try to use, and that little button with the smiley face on it. I love that button so much. I've been hoarding it forever from, I think I got it from Freckled Fawn, and I don't think it ends up making it to this page because I don't want to use it because I just want to keep it. So I end up just going for it and using some foam adhesive, popping all these florals up on layers, and I do end up using one of those chipboards that I was trying to fit in, and it is a blue chipboard, and it says Finding Myself, and it was the perfect extra embellishment to add to this page. I wanted to make sure that it got in there, but the other 2, the button and the pink chipboard, I end up putting back aside. I'll save those for another project or just keep hoarding them because that's what I like to do. So when I glue and put down my florals here, I actually curl up the edge of all of my flowers, and I also curl up the edge of the leaves to help pop everything off the page even more. I love dimension and layers, so that's one way that I really get it. The word lovely, I am going to alternate between gluing directly down onto my mixed media background. If you do this, I highly suggest using some form of liquid glue. Tape run or adhesive can work, but I have not had the best of luck with it staying there permanently after months pass after layouts being done. I've had experience where they just pop off, so I highly recommend using liquid adhesive whenever you are doing anything mixed media. I do end up popping up a couple of the letters on foam adhesive to create more of that dimension, and it also helps because my photos, I do land putting on foam adhesive as well, so it brings everything up to the same plane. So this embellishment cluster with these florals, I'm going to do the same thing. Glue some of them down, pop some up on foam adhesive. I'm only doing the glue adhesive on a portion of them. I do tear some leaves and the part of the stem off at the bottom, just so that it nestles behind that flower a little bit better. Add just a tiny bit more and then pop all of those leaves up, and it is perfect. So at this point, I felt like my photos were starting to get a little lost. I also felt like the white paper in the background with the florals on it also got lost. So what I decided to do was go back into my photos, rip all of the foam adhesive off that I had put on there, and then pull out that floral white pattern paper again and use that as layers behind all 4 of my photos. So I took a minute and backed all 4 of my photos up with this floral paper. And then I will go back in and trim these all out. I do distress the edges of these once I do get them trimmed out, using my distress tool. You don't have to have a distress tool if you don't have one of these in your stash. Mine, I do believe, is a Tonic Studios or a Tim Holtz version. It's a Tim Holtz one. But there are a lot out there. This is one of those things that a lot of companies carry on the market. You may even be able to find an inexpensive version of one of these at the dollar store. I've had this one in my stash forever and ever. If you don't have one, if you don't want to buy one, use the edge of your scissors. That works out just as well too. So I'm going to go through and distress the edges of all of these photos. It helps add that same texture, makes everything more consistent, and it brings in and makes the project more fluid in the end. So once that's all done, I do end up brushing because it does create some like paper fuzzies. So I do get those all off, and then I go back through and add that foam adhesive back onto the back of my photos. This one I did have to trim a little bit of it off. And then I'm going to go through and glue everything down. This is the point where I'm like, yes, this is it. That's perfect. That's exactly how I want it. Don't breathe, don't move, don't sneeze, nothing. Get it glued before I lose it, because like I said, this project, I want to say it took me around 2 hours to do, which is very long, because I did a lot of fussing, moving. I was very indecisive on the pictures. I was very indecisive on the embellishments, but yeah. So I literally glued everything down the minute that I was like, yes, this is it. I grabbed my handy dandy paperweight because liquid glue and this foam, I feel, doesn't like each other, and it takes a minute for it to want to work. And even still, it stays movable for quite a bit. So I use my paperweight to help hold everything into place while it's drying. This Finding Me chipboard is the one that I mentioned before. It was one of the chipboards that I wanted to use and tried to use, but it's the only one that ends up making it on there because I forgot I had these layered hearts that I really wanted to use. And as I was trying to fuss with all of these other embellishments, the scale of stuff wasn't working for me, and it almost became too busy. And then the hearts came into play, and I thought, well, maybe we'll just put 1 or 2 of these on here. And then as I started looking at these hearts, I realized there was a 2-toned pink one with black and white polka dots on it, which matched one of the swimsuits that I was wearing. So I was like, this is what it's going to be. Polka dots. Add more polka dots. You can never have too many polka dots. On the bottom one here, I do add that yellow, purple, or yellow, pink, and teal one. I end up pulling it off because I had a second pink heart with the black and white polka dots. So I ended up using both of those and calling it done. So after this, I added no more embellishments. I added in a couple bits of thread. Again, it's kind of been my thing because it adds a little bit more oomph, I think, to my projects. Adds a little bit more dimension, a pop of color, a pop of texture, another layer. And it just looks so cute behind that heart. So I am going to add this thread in a couple more places. I do believe it goes behind both hearts. And then I am also going to add it in behind the Finding Me chipboard. It helps that pop off and gives a little bit more of a layer between the chipboard and the mixed media background. After I added that in, I do believe that I tried to add in some enamel dots and some other things, but like I said, there was already a lot going on. I didn't want to take away from the mixed media that I had already created in the background. So I kind of put everything away except for this sheet of enamel stickers that had these flowers on them, and I thought that they had worked and matched perfectly. They had been one of those things that have been in my stash for years and years and years, so I thought, well, we're going to use the flowers, but everything else we're just going to put away, and then we're just going to call it done. So at this point, I realized I had a lot of color, and I wanted to bring back some of that white. So I just grabbed my tube of white acrylic paint that I had from my stash. You can find this anywhere, Michael's, Joann's, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, and I water it down and grab my paintbrush and I throw some really bold and then some really fine splatters around the page in white, and I just think that that brings everything all together, and I call it done after that. There was a lot going on in this one. It's very bright, it's very colorful, but I think that this white helps pull all of that white from the right side of the page over to the left, and it just finally brings the layout to an end. So this is going to finish up this layout. I love the dimension that comes through on this, all of the stitching, the foam adhesive, how the petals pop off the page, and all of that thread and chipboard adhesive. Thanks so much, you guys, for stopping by. I hope you've had fun. I hope you've been inspired. If you are not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. And if you are, make sure that you hit that bell. That way you can be notified of the next time that I upload a video in this series, which should be next week. Thanks so much again, you guys, for stopping by. Have a wonderful day. Bye.